The subcommittee will come to order. I'd like to thank Ranking Member Espiat and our subcommittee members for being here today. Chief Manger, welcome back. And while we know you're looking forward to a retirement, we appreciate your willingness to extend your time with us while we search for your successor. We look forward to your testimony today. The purpose of today's hearing is to review the United States Capitol Police fiscal year 2026 budget request, which is $9.67 million. A 20% increase over the enacted fiscal year 2025 CR. The requested funding supports continued growth to both sworn and civilian personnel, nearly 14% over fiscal year 2025 levels, and an increase of nearly 26% in general expenses. While I intend to keep my comments brief, I want to thank you again for this opportunity to express our continued gratitude to our officers of the United States Capitol Police. Thank you to all you do to keep our campus safe for all those who visit and work here. I now yield to Ranking Member Espiat for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief Manger. Again, congratulations on your retirement. You're always welcome to come back to each and every one of our sessions if you like. You don't even have to come in uniform, Chief. But I hope you do enjoy your retirement, and thank you for securing the Capitol and making it a priority of the men and women in your force. I know that for fiscal year 2026, the Capitol Police has requested $967 million, which is an increase of $176 million, or 22% over the frozen 2024 enacted level provided in the full year continuing resolution. This is a big ask, and it seems that much of this increase was compounded by the unfortunate enactment of a full year continuing resolution. I'm interested to hear on the impacts of the CR on your request. I do recognize that you need more to keep us safe, and I commend you for your commitment to do that. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Chief Manger, your full testimony has been submitted for the record, and you are now recognized to provide a summary of your written testimony.
Thank you. Chairman Valadeo, Ranking Member Espiat, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to present the United States Capitol Police FY26 budget. Over the past 4 years, the USCP has experienced tremendous growth. Since 2021, there have been significant changes to increase the department's staffing levels and our security posture, and to modernize technology. So I need to acknowledge at the outset that the department's FY26 budget request is substantial. It's close to $1 billion. I recognize that there are other police departments of a similar size whose budget is not as large as ours, but we're not an ordinary law enforcement agency. The USCP is unlike any traditional police department. In fact, our mission incorporates elements similar to the FBI, the U.S. Secret Service, and the Federal Protective Services. Moreover, while the officers that you see on and around the Capitol complex represent a large portion of the department's workforce, the full scope of our duties far exceeds that of the officers and agents stationed at physical posts. Much of the work performed by the department staff, both sworn and civilian, goes well beyond the Capitol grounds. Significantly, much of our mission requirements simply did not exist 4 years ago. I cannot sufficiently emphasize that point. Following nearly 20 after-action reports and a 140 total recommendations, the department's mission expanded exponentially and continues to expand. As a result of the 103 recommendations issued by the U.S. Capitol Police Inspector General, the department had to respond to and implement recommendations that spanned the gamut in complexity, from equipping every officer with riot gear to developing the department-wide policies and expanding operational planning to strengthen the department's training functions. As a result of these recommendations, the department has taken on new responsibilities and created new divisions and teams that did not previously exist in the department. Member security concerns and major operational planning have driven the need for additional resources and staffing. The increased threat climate is perhaps one of the biggest drivers of the department's continuing need for additional resources. This past year alone saw threats against members increase to a staggering 9,400 in 1 year. The current threat environment has resulted in additional member protective responsibilities, which have increased by 27% since 2023. This includes the continuation of sunset details and the addition of short-term threat-based details, increased requests for member escorts and security monitoring at regional airports, additional technical surveillance countermeasure inspections, which have increased by nearly 400% since 2021, member residential and Capitol complex security assessments, which have almost doubled since 2021, and the request for law enforcement coordination assessments, which have increased by 159% since 2022. The department created a new standalone Intelligence Services Bureau, which did not exist 4 years ago. Our reorganization also created the Office of Standards and Training Operations, which allows the department to centralize its training, policy development, and inspections and controls functions all recommendations issued by the OIG. The department also created additional operational components such as a rapid response team that can be deployed to support events and demonstrations, disruptions at hearings, critical incidents, or calls for service. And significantly, the Protection Intelligence Operations Center, or PIOC, is a state-of-the-art fusion center for the intake and coordination of member threats, related investigations, and the newly established residential security program. None of these components existed 4 years ago. They are all new. They are all must-haves in our current threat environment. The department's FY26 budget request builds upon the accomplishments achieved over the past 4 years. It includes $687 million to fund salaries and benefits, $255 million to fund general expenses, and $25 million in multi-year funding to support the continuation of the department's mutual aid program. Over the past 4 years, other workload demands have skyrocketed, including security assessment briefings to member offices, criminal investigations, the execution of search and arrest warrants nationwide, technical surveillance countermeasure inspections, residential security, committee hearing security coverage, deployment of threat-based protection details, and other operational mission requirements to keep members, their families, and staff out of harm's way. I can't stress strongly enough that the department's protection responsibilities do not end at the Capitol campus borders. The department is statutorily entrusted with nationwide protection responsibilities of members, requirements that it cannot undertake without the support and resources of partner law enforcement agencies. Thus, the department is asking Congress to renew the mutual aid funding. The mutual aid program also provides additional protective detail coverage to enhance member security in their home districts by coordinating with state and local law enforcement to provide residential security and support events. The department expects to reach approximately 2,530 sworn personnel by the end of FY26. While this represents optimal staffing levels, the department needs to continue efforts to balance its workload, specifically between the uniformed operations and protective intelligence operations. By the end of FY27, I feel confident that the department will reach target sworn staffing levels across its organizational entities. The department is tasked with ensuring that members, the Capitol Complex staff, and visitors remain safe and secure, and must do so on a campus that is entirely open and accessible to all. There is no other federal government building with a comparable public access policy. I recognize the fiscal environment that we're in, but the department cannot provide all of the services requested and required if it is not sufficiently funded. I want to thank the members of this committee for your trust and support. It is through our joint partnership that the department has achieved such transformational change. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Chief Manger, for your testimony. Now we'll enter the question and answer portion. I'll call on members based on seniority of those present when the hearing was called to order, alternating between majority and minority, and then we'll call on members in order of their arrival. Each member will have 5 minutes. I'll first recognize myself for my 5 minutes. Chief Manger, as you mentioned in your statement, the department is asking for almost $1 billion in funding for fiscal year 2026 request. I appreciate the points you've shared with us to justify a significant request, especially the data regarding the increase in number of threats to members of Congress. However, I understand that you first assess these potential threats into categories depending upon their risk level as a direction of interest or a direct threat. Can you share the number of credible threats to members during fiscal year 24 that actually required a significant level investigation by your officers?
Well, I don't have the exact number. I can get it for you, but it's hundreds of investigations that we undertake that meet that level of being a criminal threat against a member.
As you know, when you were appointed Chief of Capitol Police, we were experiencing a shortage of sworn officers from fiscal year 2021 to current pay period in fiscal year 2025. 348 officers have joined the force. Your fiscal year 2026 budget proposes, after accounting for the expected attrition request, to add another 187 officers. Can you please share what the current 348 officers have been assigned to do and why, with the assumption of the 187 new officers coming on board, you are still requesting a $9.8 million in overtime in fiscal year 2026?
Yes. So we have the optimal staffing levels for our uniform services. That's around 1,600. We have our optimal staffing for our dignitary protection, which is 530 agents. We also have assorted people in special operations, specialty assignments, K-9, bomb squad, CERT, those kinds of operational entities. So the additional people will go toward getting those other operational entities up to their optimal staffing level. Real focus on dignitary protection because that is where our overtime and the hitting against the maximum allowable pay rate is the biggest issue. Overtime in the uniform services, much of that goes toward the big events, and we had over 200 big events last year where it required deployment of our civil disturbance folks and other special teams. We have opened up additional mags and screening portals to try and cut down on some of the lines as well. That's been done on overtime. So we still have a number of things that, and training is actually the biggest overtime driver. We've got to do a better job in terms of training. That's one of the areas where we have really improved. But that every time you take an officer off their post, off the line, out of their assignment for training, you've got to backfill it with overtime. So until we get staffing levels up to where we hope to get them to, the optimum levels that I discussed, we're still going to be paying every time, so, you know, we'll have no reserves for when people go to training or when we have to support a large event.
Appreciate that. What is the correct number of officers to properly execute the U.S. Capitol Police mission to be responsive to the security needs of the Capitol campus?
So right now, what we, I think it's 2,530 is what we sworn officers. That obviously does not include civilians. It's about 1,600 USB, 530 DPD, and then 400 other, which are mostly special operations, but there's a lot of specialty assignments and training and that sort of thing where we have sworn officers as well.
All right. In the full year enacted fiscal year 2025 CR, the committee continued to provide funding specifically for the officer retention and student loan repayment plan. Are these measures helping you retain officers? Have you seen attrition numbers decrease?
We've not seen attrition numbers increase. We've seen them decrease, and they absolutely have assisted us in keeping officers. Not only they wait till they hit the age limit to retire, but we've got folks that don't even think about going to another agency because of the retention bonus. So it's had a very, very positive impact on our attrition rate.
All right, well, thank you, Chief. I'm now going to recognize Mr. Espiat for his 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. As I stated in my opening statement, this is a significant increase, but given the needs of your department, I think is one that is a warranted one. But what I do want to find out is if in any way, shape, or form, this increase was compounded by the enactment of a full year continuing resolution. I'm interested in knowing the kinds of impact that it had on your ass, the fact that we recently passed the CR for a year.
So there are certain responsibilities that we have that we cannot shirk, and it's certainly I think the overtime was impacted in terms of making sure we had enough people for the day-to-day activities, making sure we had people at every post, and making sure people engaged in the required training that they had to go to. There were other things that we could just sort of postpone, if, whether it's equipment, whether it's vehicles, whether it's, some of the things that we could say, okay, we're going to wait for a year. But that has an impact, and it starts to, and it's not a good one. I mean, we don't want to get in a situation as we were in 4 years ago where we had equipment that was not up to date. You've got, the screening equipment. There's always improvements that we can make. We want to use the state-of-the-art equipment, and if we have to postpone getting that state-of-the-art equipment, making the improvements to the screening process, that has an impact as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Espiat. Now I'll recognize Mr. Strong for his 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member. Chief Manger, it's great to see you again. Thank you for making yourself accessible to the subcommittee. We continue to examine the important work of the U.S. Capitol Police. Your leadership and commitment to the safety of our Capitol complex and its people are truly appreciated. As you mentioned in your testimony, the mutual aid program has been key in enhancing the security of the Capitol complex and members' residences. Could you discuss your plan to further strengthen these partnerships with local and state law enforcement, given the growing need for protective detail and special security events?
So just in the last couple of years, if you look at the number of memorandums of understanding that we have with the state and local law enforcement agencies, that number is just going up exponentially. And I thank Chief Mitchell, who's sitting behind me. Her work has been, she's been all over that, and is going to continue to ensure that that number of, those number of agreements that we have with those agencies continues to grow. Frankly, we could have and should have hundreds of them, maybe even over 500 of them, for every member at their, whatever jurisdiction they live in, to have that agreement just in case. So I think eventually you'll see that number grow into the hundreds.
On the topic of collaboration, what are some ways the Capitol Police coordinates with other law enforcement and intelligence agencies to identify and mitigate threats before they escalate?
Well, I appreciate you mentioning the intelligence component of that. I mean, because 4 years ago, we had that was one of the criticisms of this department, was our intelligence operation. Today, I believe that we have a world-class intelligence operation. We are a very active member of the intelligence community, not only in the Washington, D.C. area, but nationwide. So the intelligence information that we gather, that we analyze, that we share with not only other agencies, but with certainly all of our personnel as well, is I think working at an amazing level. But the cooperation that we have with law enforcement agencies around the country continues to allow us to do our job much, much better. When we can call anywhere in the country and talk to a law enforcement agency to get their assistance, if a member has an event in their home state, or if something's occurring at that member's residence, we've got the trend that you're seeing, of course, and have been seeing, is these demonstrations and disruptions at not only events, but at people's residence. Those are the kind of things that we need to respond to very effectively, so that doesn't continue.
Thank you, and we're all thankful for local law enforcement and what they do to protect us all. Now let's focus on staffing for a moment. We're talked about it right at $1 billion budget, talking about a 20% increase, and you're managing some 2,530 sworn officers. While there's been a significant focus on increasing sworn officer numbers, the civilian workforce is equally critical to the department's operation. Chief Manger, can you elaborate on the role civilian staff play within the department and how you're planning to continue utilizing the workforce as the mission expands?
So I thank you for bringing that up as well. I mean, the sworn component of our department is really the backbone of what we do. It touches every aspect of our operations, because you've got to have people that are ensuring the logistics, ensuring equipment, ensuring the hiring that goes on, just the budget, the procurement. All of those things are handled by our civilian workforce, and I can't say enough good things about them. They truly make sure that our operations are as effective as they can be.
Thank you. As the Capitol Police's mission continues to evolve, the growing emphasis on specialized roles in areas such as protective operations, intelligence, analysis underscores the need for the advanced training. How does the department ensure it has the right expertise and staffing in these areas? And are there any new training initiatives or programs planned to emphasize these specialized capabilities?
The answer to that question is yes. We just have finished a learning needs assessment of our training division, and it's identified a number of areas that we need to improve, not the least of which is you have in-service training, which is required for every single police officer, any sworn officer every year. We're doing the minimum that we have to do, and we do it and it's at the minimum level because of the impacts on overtime and staffing and everywhere else. We've got to have a better in-service training program that does more than just the minimum that's required. So that's one area where we're going to see improvement. The leadership development and career enhancement opportunity, that kind of training for all of our staff, and leadership development for our executive and command staff are also areas that we want to focus on. It also identified the fact that our training facility is deficient. We need more space, and our training staff needs to grow. Again, we're doing, whether it's the recruit training, the in-service training, specialized training, we're doing it with a bare-bones staff. In answer to part of your question, we do hire some outside experts to come in as contractors to instruct our folks, but in my opinion, it's better to have that expertise in-house. And we develop that, and we also are able to hire some folks to come in to help us train as well.
Thank you, Chief. Manger, I also commend you for a dedication of your life to public safety, and I wish you nothing but the very best in your retirement. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Strong. I now yield 5 minutes to Mr. Hoyer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to join Mr. Strong, and I know all the members of this committee on thanking you for your service, not only to the Capitol Police and the United States Capitol and the citizens of the United States, but also your experience in Fairfax County, where you rose to be chief, and Montgomery County, where you were chief. And it's just been an extraordinary career, and president of the chiefs of major cities. So you are really one of the best of the best. So thank you very much for your service. Let me ask you a question, Chief. You've been in 3 departments. Morale is an important facet of any department. Tell me, if you can, the impact of because you mentioned 4 years, you've had a lot of changes in what needed to be done. The ramifications of the pardons given to those who committed the insurrection in January of 2021, and the ramifications of those pardons to the morale of the Capitol Police.
I think there was an impact to not only to the Capitol Police, but an impact nationwide when you see folks that are pardoned, and I'm really referring to the ones that were that were convicted of assaulting police officers. I think that's what bothered most cops, and it did certainly have an impact on the USCP. And we've got so much change, that the officers are experiencing over the last 4 years. So I'm trying to keep them focused on moving forward. But it certainly did have a negative impact on for cops all over this country. When you wonder, you put your life on the line every day, and does it matter?
Yeah. How has impacted retention and recruitment? I know we're at 2350. You need more. You're asking for a budget to create more to solve some of the problems we have I've heard from a lot of officers on the overtime. That's a real challenge to families as well as to the officers themselves. Can you comment on the retention and recruitment impact?
Yeah, the retention bonus that we've been able to give to our officers over the last 3 years has really made a significant difference in getting the attrition level decreased. And so you've got more officers staying. It's certainly been a help in terms of recruiting as well. I mean, the changes this committee has approved over the 4 years I've been here to increase the starting salary, increase the pay for the Capitol Police, along with the retention bonus, along with the student loan repayment program. All of those things, you add that to what we describe to these young folks that are looking for a career in law enforcement is to having a front row seat to history when you join the Capitol Police. It's all been a very successful endeavor in terms of allowing us to recruit and retain officers.
Well, that's good, and hopefully we'll continue to support that effort because that's critical, obviously, to having not only the personnel numbers, but also the quality of people that we can recruit and retain. Last question I want to ask you is, during the January 6th insurrection, we had real problems with chain of command. For those of us who were involved in the leadership, Senator McConnell and others had real discussions about what the chain of command is under those circumstances, who's in charge. Can you tell me how well you think we've arrived at an understanding of how that response to an effort like that, hopefully we won't have another one, but if we had one, how the chain of command works with respect to federal, armed forces, police, metropolitan, and surrounding jurisdictions?
So one of the things that Congress did right after the events of January 6, 2021 was to give the Capitol Police Chief the authority to directly contact National Guard and request assistance. This has been, that was a great step forward, and in fact, I have, in the time that I've been here, have always maintained a very close relationship with the general in charge of the National Guard. We have a great relationship, and in fact have utilized their services on a number of occasions for different types of events, and it's a great relationship, and it allows for very orderly request and deployment if we need that. The relationship between the Capitol Police and the surrounding law enforcement agencies, both federal and local, is I think at a level where it needs to be. I mean, we have a great relationship, and with a phone call, we can get whatever resources that we need. And then finally, the part of the improvements that were made was the operational planning that we did, which was certainly lacking prior. But the operational planning we do for big events, for just routine events, is at a level that it should be. It's formal, it is written, and people can look at this plan for, we did this kind of plan for over 200 events last year, and you can see who's in charge, who's assigned to do what, and so certainly within the Capitol Police, there's no question about the chain of command and who has responsibility for what.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I now recognize Ms. Malloy for her 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, it's good to see you again. Thank you for what you've done. And I just want to follow up on what my colleague just said about hoping that you feel like it's worth it, that you all show up at work every day and put your lives on the line for us. Thank you for that. We work side by side with you every day, and I recognize that we're probably a fairly difficult clientele. Thank you for the professionalism that you and your officers show with us and with the public. You said earlier that you are fully confident by FY '27 you'll be fully staffed. And we had another hearing right before this where my colleague, Mr. Strong, asked if we're going to get more entrances and exits open to the buildings. And they said that's a question for Capitol Police. Does fully staffed mean more entrances and exits open?
Yeah, I think most of them are open. I mean, there may be a couple here or there. One of the keys for us is to try and maximize the space we have, and that's one of the problems that so many of the screening areas, so many of the doors, so to speak, they're not really ideally suited to be a screening area. And so if you could put a second X-ray machine, a second mag in there, put the better equipment, the more state-of-the-art equipment, which requires a little bit more room. Look at the CVC. I mean, that's really designed nicely. Boy, would it be great if every entrance that we had where we were screening people was like that, and that would cut down on the lines. So the additional staffing would get us to a point where we could do this without paying overtime. Right now, we're doing it with overtime. But there's other things too that are more physical limitations that we need to look at as well.
Okay, thank you. Over the past few years, it seems like the department's using perimeter fencing a lot more, the anti-scale fencing, parade fencing. What's the decision process to determine when that's required?
So it depends on the event, it depends on the level of risk, we've got criteria that are standard. I would say that typically we only use it once or twice a year. Now, I know for the State of the Union address, we use it. For me, the justification is you've got every branch of government, all three branches of government, most of the people, in one place. We certainly have been in a heightened threat environment for the last few years, and I think it's prudent. We put it up one day, and then we take it down the next. So it's not as obtrusive as it was. And believe me, I get that nobody likes to fence up. I don't either. But I think for big events like that, where we had the Prime Minister of Israel last summer, we had thousands and thousands of people show up, and it was about the angriest crowd that I've seen here in my 4 years here. And we had some episodes of violence. We certainly had arrests. We had and with the intelligence that we had about what some of the protesters had, there was chatter about in terms of doing harm to the Prime Minister. I think again it was prudent to take the measures that we took.
So when you do take the measures, you put up fence, take it down efficiently, that's true. Whose budget does that come out of?
Well, typically, it's the Secret Service's budget. If they're recommending for the State of the Union, it's my understanding that the Secret Service pays for that.
Okay. In your testimony, you've kind of answered this already. I just want to give you a chance to fully answer it. You talked about the problems in 2021 that made it hard to recruit and retain officers. Do you feel like those problems have been solved? I know you have more FTEs now than you did then. Well, look, we had 103 IG recommendations. Every one of those recommendations has been implemented and resolved. If you were to ask, I got thousands of cops, a couple thousand cops. If you'd ask them, if all the problems been solved, you'd get a variety of answers. Everything from yeah, everything's fine to folks that would say no, nothing's fine. But I would say that the big issues that we faced, where the rank and file lost confidence in this department because they felt the department let them down,
And in fact, it did in many ways. I don't think you hear the same concerns about their equipment. Do we have enough people? Our training, all those things. So in large measure, the big issues that were identified have been resolved in my view.
Okay, thank you. My time's expired. I'll just end with thank you again for the time you spent here and wishing you luck in retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you. I now recognize Mr. Lalota for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Over the last several years, the Capitol Police have undergone a dramatic transformation, growing in size, complexity, and responsibility. What was once a force primarily focused on the Capitol grounds now operates with a nationwide scope, navigating a heightened threat landscape, expanding protective operations, and embracing new technologies to secure both people and infrastructure. At the heart of this transformation is a workforce expected to do more with urgency and precision, often under immense pressure. As the department prepares for its next phase of growth, the path forward raises critical considerations about readiness, morale, modernization, and how to responsibly manage nearly $1 billion budget. Chief Manger, good to see you again today, sir. Thank you for your 4.5 decades of service. I'm not sure if this is going to be our last meeting or not, but it's good to interact with you. I want to ask you, sir, how does the department determine priorities for physical security upgrades with respect to budgeting? How does the department determine priorities for that budgeting for physical security upgrades across the Capitol complex?
We have a team of folks that will visit the Pentagon, visit TSA, and White House, and look at where what other agencies are doing in terms of screening, and to make sure that we've got the right equipment, that advances that are made, that we're all sort of on the same page, and that we keep current with what's the best practice.
My colleague from Utah asked about the cost of temporary fencing, or at least the issue of temporary fencing. Has anybody considered the cost as it relates to doing temporary fencing for one event versus creating some low-profile, more permanent structures, on how would it take 2, 3, 4 events? Does the cost of those number of events equal the cost of a more permanent, lower profile fencing?
I know those discussions have occurred, and I know that the folks that do that kind of security work within my agency have had meetings with vendors, and they're with the sergeant at arms, and this has been now a couple years ago. Looking at those kinds of options. So I know that those discussions have been had, and those opportunities, and I guess for a different sort of countermeasure, a different sort of security fencing, a little lower profile, have been discussed and looked at.
Chief, I've been led to believe that the cost of 3 events, the temporary structures for 3 events, would equal what it would cost for a more permanent, though low profile, and I think everybody who supports a permanent solution also wants it to be low profile. I've been led to believe that the cost of 3 temporary structures is equal to 1 permanent one. Can you get back to us, Chief, sometime about your estimates on one versus the other?
Yes.
I also want to ask you, Chief, what role do emerging technologies, including artificial intelligence, play in your modernization plan?
Artificial intelligence, one of probably the biggest area where that is assisting us is in the screening process, where you have X-ray machines that can identify prohibited items when they come through, and that technology is improving every single day. And so we certainly stay in touch with the vendor that we use for our machines to make sure that we have the latest upgrades from that vendor. It's not perfect. You're always going to need to have the human eyes on those screens and human interactions with those individuals that have been identified as to having some prohibited item. So, but the AI helps us avoid those what we call single points of failure, where you can have one person miss something and then you could have a problem. AI can give us that backup which is better for our security campus-wide.
With about the 30 seconds I have remaining, Chief, I want to switch gears just a little bit and hone in on your specific budget request. And we're all under a microscope, and we appreciate that, you know, the dollars are limited, and certainly acknowledging the issue of the size and scope of the job is rightfully expanding. You have many new threats, and you're not just here in DC. You have to deal with those threats off campus. But can you give the committee a sense of how, Chief, you're ensuring that taxpayer dollars are being spent efficiently and aligned with operational priorities?
Well, we certainly have internal budget controls, and we have just, one of the new teams has been created is our inspections unit, which are going to, in addition to what the Inspector General does, have take a look agency-wide for opportunities for efficiencies and to ensure compliance in terms of how we administer our budget.
Thank you, Chief. I yield.
Well, if there are no further questions, I'd like to thank Chief Manger and your team and the entire Capitol Police Force for everything they do and for your service. Members may submit any additional questions for the record, and the subcommittee now stands adjourned.